back to my channel, Mamas Unite. Today I'm just going to talk about my personal experience with baby helmets. My son James had two. He had a severe case of what is called plagiocephaly, which is basically your child's head is flat on, could be one side, could be both sides. It's typically one, just based on how your child's head was either in utero or resting after birth without rotation, things like that. So I hadn't heard a whole lot about plagiocephaly and baby helmets before my son needed one. So I wanted to make a video to put all of you parents at ease in terms of what a baby helmet is, what is the process of getting one, how does your baby react in it, how long do they have to wear it for, what are the rules, all of those things. So I'm gonna just start at the beginning of my experience and tell you a little bit about the helmets, what the appointments consist of, and what James's day-to-day kind of looked like. So when James was 4 months old, my mom was watching him and she mentioned to me that his head looked flat in the back. And I had never noticed, maybe because I just saw him so much, but my mom was concerned enough that she wanted me to make an appointment with my pediatrician. So I went ahead and did that, and I saw my pediatrician. And how they evaluate for plagiocephaly is they lay your baby on the table and they look at the baby's ears. So if the baby's ears are aligned, then the baby's head is pretty symmetrical. But if the baby's ears are rotated or asymmetrical, not aligned, then the baby's head has something going on. It's not perfectly round. And no one's head is perfectly round, I'm not saying that. But if the ears are far enough off, then they refer you out to some therapists that help create these helmets and help shape the head. A lot of them are occupational therapists there. So I got a referral to a place called Cranial Technologies. I believe they are a national company. I live in Orange County, California, so I went to the one here in Orange County. And so I took James there, and the first visit is a consultation. So they sit you down and they kind of watch how you hold the baby. So I was holding James and feeding him a bottle, and the woman, the occupational therapist, asked me, "Is that always the arm that you hold James on?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is." So she said, "Okay." She just kind of made a note. And then she kind of asked about our day-to-day. You know, does James get a lot of tummy time, which I thought was sufficient, probably wasn't. And then, you know, how much time, do you ever rotate his head when he's sleeping? I really didn't, because he was such a terrible sleeper. I just wanted to leave him alone. So all of those things they took notes on. And then they take the baby, you undress the baby into just a diaper, and they take the baby into this room with kind of like 360 cameras. And they had me hold James on this little pedestal, and they put this fishnet sock over their whole head, and it squishes their face in, but they can still breathe. And they take these photos, and to prevent the baby from freaking out, they have these like flashy, spinny light toys, and the baby's all enamored and just watches it. So they take all these photos. Then you go back to the room, you can dress the baby, all of that. And they have this TV, and they put up the image of his head and then a child his same age without plagiocephaly. And James's head was clearly flat on one side compared to the picture of the child without any asymmetry. And they just kind of talked to us about what plagiocephaly is, what kind of causes it. A lot of times it's caused in utero, especially with twins, because there's not a lot of space. James was not a twin. So in my case, they They think that he probably didn't get enough tummy time and he spent too much time on his back in the car seat and just in the crib without me rotating his head. Because James was such a bad sleeper and he slept really good in the car and on walks, my husband and I would just drive or just walk for like an hour and we wouldn't touch him. We would just leave his head the way it was. And I think that's what did it. And I just want to say right now that if your baby has plagiocephaly, it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. There are so many cases of plagiocephaly. It's so common that it sounds so cliche, but it's really not your fault. I had a hard time with it at first because I felt really bad, but the treatment is pretty straightforward. With James, as you can see, he had a severe case, and so he needed 2 helmets because typically what happens is babies typically are like a mild moderate case, and they'll wear this helmet for about 8 to 10 weeks. James was so severe that he was in his helmets for 7 months. So I hope that makes you feel a little bit better, that if my kid had a helmet for 7 months, your kid is going to be just fine. James has a beautiful, pretty symmetrical head. I notice it's not perfect just because I'm his mom, but anyone else wouldn't know. I mean, his head looks round. So I just wanted to put that in there real quick. But going back to the consultation, they did explain to us the treatment, the duration of it, and they said that they did prep us that because James was a severe case that he would need 2 helmets. Insurance does cover it, so if you have, or part of it I should say, if you haven't hit your deductible, you obviously have to hit that, and then insurance does cover part of it. So I would, if you have any concerns, I would see your pediatrician to get a referral to Cranial Technologies, or other companies make these. It's not just Cranial Technologies. So just whatever company your pediatrician refers you to, I would check them out. But anyway, so they teach you the basics of the helmet. So after the consult, you go home and it takes a few weeks for them to make it, and then you'll go back in for the first fitting. So they give you this foam pad. There's a Velcro piece here. You'll unvelcro it. And the foam pad stays in to keep its shape. So obviously it yellows over time. It was more of like a white color when they first gave it to us, and now it's just yellowed. But they'll put it on the baby's head, and then what they do is there's this foam inside, and they shave it down accordingly to where your baby needs growth. So if your baby, for example, has flatness on the right side, they're going to keep the left side of the helmet where it's at, and they're going to shave down the right side to allow the right side to grow out. So in order to monitor this, when your baby is younger than 6 months old, you go in every week and they take a look and they'll shave a little bit down at a time. And then after 6 months old, you go in every 2 weeks because the head starts to slow down in its growth. So that's how it's done. James had a little bit of skin wearing on the back of his head. And I noticed it. I took a picture, sent an email to the therapist I was working with, and she called me pretty immediately and had me just go in that day. I didn't have an appointment. She said, just come in because I don't want this skin to get any worse. So I went in, I took him in, and they have a nurse on site. They always have a nurse on site. And the nurse came in, confirmed that the helmet in that position needed to be shaved more. And it's just the way his head was forming. And sure enough, that took care of the problem. The rules of the helmet typically, well, I should say always, you wear the helmet, the baby wears the helmet 23 hours a day and they get 1 hour off. But in this case, when James had the skin wear, I could have him out of it for a little bit longer. I didn't care if he was going to be in it months longer or weeks longer. I didn't care. We needed that skin to heal. So he was out of it. I think I kept him out of it for a couple hours that day. But typically it's 23 hours a day, 1 hour off. And I'm pretty sure you can split up the hour if you want to do 30 and 30 minutes or 20, 20, 20, something like that. I just did the full hour. And they recommend you clean it with 70% alcohol. So I would take a cloth, rub it with the alcohol, and then I would set it in the sun because these things start to stink, especially in the summer when your baby's sweating. Oh man, these things get stinky. So I would put it out in the sun, and then typically during his hour off, I would, if he needed a bath, I'd give him a bath. And if not, we would just have playtime and just, you know, he would just do his thing. I'd, you know, kind of rub his hair and get him like, you know, nice and clean. But other than that, he had no issues other than the little skin wear incident. No issues. So after the, he was in this helmet for, I want to say 8 to 10 weeks. And then we went in for basically like another evaluation. And they take another photo with the fishnet stocking and all of that. And then they show you a comparison of where he started to where he is now. And then they ask you, they say, you know, we prepped you that he would need 2 helmets most likely, but it's up to you. You don't have to do the second helmet. If you're happy with how his head looks now, then fine, he can leave it. He's not gonna be affected. But I knew that he would benefit from a second helmet. I knew there was more growth that could be done. So I opted for the second helmet. And so we went ahead and contacted the insurance and got that started. So they did the same thing, fishnet stocking, pictures, sent in for the helmet. The helmet was fabricated. We went in for a fitting, and this was the second helmet. So you can see the difference. Not a huge difference, but the second helmet's definitely bigger. And he was in this helmet for a couple months, probably like 2 or 3 months. Maybe more, maybe like 4 months. And with this first helmet, we would go in, you know, every week until he hit 6 months. With this helmet, it was every 2 weeks. This helmet, he had no issues. Same rules apply, 23 hours a day, 1 hour off. The cleaning's the same with the 70% alcohol, and you can see, you know, where they shaved it and where they didn't, how it's dirty and then clean on one side. So he did really well in this. It actually was kind of beneficial because once he started moving more, he would hit his head, and this thing protected him. So he really, once he had it off, it was like a learning curve for him because he had to realize that things hurt. When you hit your head, it hurts. You don't have a helmet anymore. So he did very well with this. So that's really it. As a parent, there's not too much you have to do except just clean it, make sure they're wearing it as often as you can. Because I did see a family. One time I went in for my appointment and there was a family who their child was not wearing the helmet consistently. And that baby outgrew the helmet and his treatment wasn't done. So they had to pay to get another helmet made because they weren't being diligent on how many hours the baby was wearing the helmet. It has to be 23 hours a day with 1 hour off, or else you're not going to get the full benefit of the helmet. And then you're going to, you know, the baby, it won't fit anymore. And then at that point, there's really nothing you can do. You have to get another one made. So you just have to, as a parent, you have to be on top of things. And for me, when I was at work, I was very clear with my mom and my in-laws on the rules. I know it's hard to see your baby in a helmet. I get that, but it's for their benefit and they're not going to remember it. And it's temporary. It really is a short period of time. For most people, like I said, it's maybe like 2 months, 2.5. Most kids don't have these for 7 months. So when James got it off, I was so happy and so excited to not have to deal with it anymore. Love the people at Cranial Tech, but I did not want to have to go there every 2 weeks anymore. They really said they were going to miss James they told us on the very last appointment that he was one of the most severe cases they've seen. They didn't want to tell us that initially because they didn't want to scare us, but it kind of made me feel good to know that I went ahead with the second helmet, because his head looks so good now. I mean, from the first picture to the last, it's just amazing, the technology that is out there these days. And I just want to put parents at ease who don't know what plagiocephaly is. It's really more common than we think, and I bet you there's more kids that have it that were never diagnosed. They may just have a mild case. I'm very thankful to my mom for pushing me to go to the pediatrician and for noticing. And I just want to also add that James, a lot of times when babies have plagiocephaly, they have something called torticollis. And torticollis is basically like a stiff neck. So when your baby has a flat head, those muscles, they're weaker than the other side. And so I was referred to a physical therapist, a pediatric PT, and I took James for an eval, and she taught me great exercises that I did with James on my own. I think we went to PT about once a week, and he was in PT for months, probably like 6 months, 4 to 6 months he was in PT. And those were exercises that I can now use on my daughter in the case that she has any sort of issues. And I'm going to be really diligent in not keeping her in a car seat for too long or in the car, rotating her head when she sleeps, doing more tummy time, trying to build up the strength in her arms to hold her upper body up, things like that. But as a first-time parent, don't feel bad. It's not, you're just trying to survive. There's so much you're learning, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So I just wanted to make a video to help provide more information for parents that are maybe going through this or are pregnant and say, what if this happens to my baby? I just wanted to, give you my personal experience, and I'm going to post some pictures so that you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And if you have any questions, leave me a comment. I'd be happy to answer to the best of my ability. I know a lot of articles can kind of scare you on Google. So my advice would be just go get the consult. You don't have to get the treatment. Just get the information and go from there. It's better to have more info than none at all. And I know a lot of parents who went in for a consult and their baby just had a minor case and they didn't go forward with treatment because it was so minor that they didn't feel the need. For me, it was the opposite. It was more major, so I felt the need. But James did great in these. When we took him off, it's like he didn't even realize they were gone. And he was so young when he had it on that it didn't bother him. I thought, oh no, he's not gonna sleep. He has this big bulky helmet. It was fine. He was a bad sleeper anyways, but it did not impede him from doing any of his normal activities. So he could still roll over in this, all of those things. So it's not as big of a deal as we parents make it out to be. But I just hope that this video makes you feel a little bit better. And I just hope that this information is beneficial in a way that you can not be so hard on yourself. Just know your baby's gonna be okay, and that these are very, very common. There were so many kids in that office building when I would take James to his appointments. So knowledge is power. Just, keep an eye on your baby when they're little. Just make sure that, all of us parents always worry. So that's never gonna end. But I can tell you that James now, he's perfect, and he is my baby boy. And I am so happy we spent the money, because these aren't cheap, even with insurance, but worth every penny. So just stay strong And thank you for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.